Spree, right behind you.
Strange. Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Rickard, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
Did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena. And
most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
It just keeps getting worse and worse. I mean, it just keeps getting worse and worse. I wasn't going to do a show tonight, but I have to. I learned so much stuff today. I'm going to share with you the most incredible things. What I learned today is it's probably the biggest I've ever learned in terms of the impact that it's going to have on all of Bay County, but right now, specifically in Panama City Beach with regard to Popeye Park, which is a lot. It is a lot inside of a subdivision that most of us know as Lowwater. And it's a lot that is privately owned. But the city in 2019 spent taxpayer dollars because Mayor Mike Thomas wanted a playground on this private lot. And they did it. They built it, about $50,000. Now, this lot, I will prove to you through documents, is privately owned. It is certainly not owned by the city of Panama City Beach. But today, I saw that the supervisor of the property appraiser, they altered documents. They altered the ownership documents. I'm going to put side by side what it said last week and what it says this week. And you decide for yourself. This is such a big story. I'm asking you if you will help me get the word out, if you'll help me share it. And here's how you can do that. If you'll just share it, tag your friends, I promise you this will be worth it. If any show's ever been worth it. All right, so let's get to it. The first thing I want to show you is the document itself. This is from the property appraiser's website. All right. About a week ago, on May 12th, the property in question, the property that the playground was built on that sits right next to Mayor Mike Thomas's son's home. This is what it said. There's the parcel ID number. That's the address. But look what's changed in the bottom two circles. The property use code. Well, last week it was residential common. That was the tax code for the lot in question. Now it is what city vacant? The hell happened? Well, look at the very bottom. Last week there was no primary owner listed. This week, the primary owner is Panama City Beach. Now that's very interesting, isn't it? You see all that? Here's why it's interesting. Because if the city of Panama City Beach owns the Popeye Park lot, that parcel, then why did Commissioner Jarman, direct the city council to gain those parcels just a week ago?
I'd like to direct council to see about what we can do to gain those parcels. And also, since the investigation is over, that information is now public record. That's all I have.
What parcels?
Oh, the Popcorn Park parcels, he says. I'm sorry, I cut it off a little early. So let's take a look at what it actually looks like. Let's take a look at that property itself. Here it is. So in the red, that is the parcel we're talking about. It's in the low water neighborhood, okay? Now the house just above it, that's the mayor's son's home. So in 2019, Mayor Mike Pay-to-Play Thomas pressured then city manager Mario Rico Gispert to build a playground and to find a way to do it so it doesn't ever get to the council, so that his sons, Mike Thomas's grandkids could have a nice place to play. That was originally a boat dock. This subdivision was platted. It was created in 1962 by a developer by the name of Sam B. Hearn. Sam Hearn was a big neighborhood developer in Alabama and in this area. And the city does not own that lot. I don't care what the property appraiser says, and I'll prove it to you. All right, so there it is. The reason the city does not own that lot is because the city does not have a deed of conveyance for that lot. That lot was never given to the city in any way. And the city knows it. And Dan Sau, the property appraiser, he knows it too. But they think they're being slick. I cannot believe they're doing this because legally, this is a piece of cake. I talked to a very great real estate attorney today, and he couldn't believe what I was showing him. He couldn't believe it. So the city does not have a deed of conveyance. That's what they need. If you tell me you own a piece of property and you want to sell it to me, I'm going to say that we're going to need to see that. We're going to need to transfer the deed, right? If we don't transfer the deed, I don't really own it. The city doesn't own it. The property owners of the subdivision own it. Let me show you. Here's the actual plat. Okay, this is the plat map of that area. It's hard to read, but I broke it down also. I rewrote all that. So this is the Diamond Head section. This is the plat. This is like the constitution of that subdivision. Okay. This is a legally binding document of this subdivision. This plat governs all future conveyances since 1962. It was signed in 1962 in March, right after the city of Panama City Beach West, which is before the current city, right after Panama City Beach West was established. This was one of their first orders of business, approving this plat map for the subdivision we now think of as low water. And in this map, in this plat, here's what it says. Oh, that's not what it says. I'm sorry. Believe this is what it says. Yes. The important thing to see is the second bold writing. Okay. The developer dedicated and conveyed, read this, low water lake, as well as all the lakes and parts of lakes within the boundary of this plat to and for the use of the benefit of the property. And it goes on. Now, it dedicates to the city of West Panama City Beach and to the county of Bay, the state of Florida, the right to use the drainage easements shown. In other words, and this is common, all right, anybody who's really into real estate understand this. When you have a plat creating a subdivision, part of the plat, the developer will dedicate those things, the roads, the easements, to the city, the state, the county. But the good stuff is reserved for the owners of the property. All right, now getting back to this. So the important thing, and there's going to be actually more at the end of this, there's going to be something you can do. So the chain of title of that plat of the lots that are within that map that's a complete ownership history of each of those lots has a chain of title, right? Who owns it and when it was transferred, when it was conveyed to a different person. In this case, the land. Okay, here's how it works. First you have the land, right? Then you have the land is bought by, in this case, by Sam B. Hearn, and he platted it into a subdivision. And then in that subdivision, he dedicated and conveyed the lots and the parks and the lake to, the parks and the lake to the owners of the subdivision. That's how the owners collectively got ownership of it, right? And the only way that changes is if all of the owners sign those parks away, or if all of the owners sign the lake away, because it's a collective ownership, or if there is eminent domain. Those are the only two ways that the city can gain those parcels. Now, the last transfer of conveyance, the last one of that lot right here in the red, the last transfer of conveyance was from the developer to the owners of the subdivision. There has been no other conveyance, no other transfer of the deed for that land. The city doesn't have it. They have slandered the title of that deed. I mean, of that plot, of that deed. They've slandered it by saying they own it, and so has the property appraiser. Now, here's what the city claims. The city claims that because the developer died in 1970, the corporation dissolved in 1962. So the property appraiser is saying that when Panama City West became Panama City, that the ownership of that particular lot transferred to the city. But that's absurd. Just because there is a new corporation of a municipality, right? The municipality of Panama City Beach, that doesn't mean that the city automatically gets properties that are private. There still has to be a conveyance of the deed, and there never was. And the fact that the corporation dissolved in 1982 doesn't matter, because it is the plat itself that governs future conveyances. The developer already dedicated and conveyed those lots and that lake. All right. Whether he passes away and the corporation expires, the plat is like the Constitution. It is the legal covenant of how those things are owned. And guess what? Everybody knows this. In terms, the city knows it. The city attorneys know it. I have it in their notes. The property appraiser even knows it. The newspaper and the news know it. But the three of them are playing a game to try to confuse the public, because they've got bigger plans that I'll share with you down the road. There's a reason they need to own these lots. All right. Now, the city claims that it can own these private lots because the corporation dissolved, and because they've been maintaining these lots for the last several decades. But what they're leaving out is the property owners of the development still own the lot, no matter what. So the plat alone is what determines how the lots are conveyed. And here's what's interesting. This is what the city's plan is. I know because I've seen their notes. Okay. The city's plan is, if we say that it's related to the public, if we say that we've been taking care of it for a long time. There was this one case down in Miami where there was a form of adverse conveyance. Adverse, it's known as equitable easement, right? It's an adverse possession. There's one case. But here's what the city knows probably and doesn't want you to know. You ready for this? Adverse, how's it worded here? I want to make sure I get it right. Adverse possession of any kind That cannot happen in a platted subdivision. All right. Platted subdivisions are exempt from adverse possession. We don't care if you've cleaned it the whole time. The property owners still own it. They've got the conveyance deed. So this idea that they can go to court and say we've been taking care of it for a long time, we get the deed, it will not hold. It won't hold. So they are hell-bent, though, to steal this property from the collective owners who have the deed and the plat. And I'm telling you, and I know they know, no legal fakakta theory they can dream up is going to change this, because they cannot supersede the plat of that subdivision. Now, as I said, they've slandered the deed, and any claim of ownership they have of any of these lots is invalid, because none of them were ever conveyed to the city. Every single property owner would have to sign off on that for that to happen. It has never happened. This ownership is true of all of those lots, not just Popcorn Park. The city is in no position in the chain of title. Remember, the chain of title is what we need to see. The city is not in any of those positions. It went from just being land to being bought to being platted into a subdivision. And then those lots are sold, and there's a record of the transference. And the city is not anywhere in the chain of ownership. In the chain of title is what it's called. So this illegal claim of ownership really is willful. They know this, the city does. And they're still doing it, costing taxpayers how much? So the rightful owners of this park that are named in the plat, they've got a slam dunk lawsuit. If the owners of Lowwater sued Panama City Beach for slandering the title and for invading the property and for putting a park, a playground where the boat ramp is, they will absolutely win against the corrupt city of Panama City Beach. And PCB knows it. Jeez, I'm so sorry. Here's what you can do to help. Public records. This matters in the courts. When they go to court and they say, look, the people didn't really care. We didn't get any emails. Nobody seemed to care. Nobody showed up to the meetings. That matters. But when there are a lot of emails, not just a smattering, but when there are a lot of emails, that hurts them in court, because it shows the people give a damn. So there's two places we should send public record requests, and for specific things. The first one is Panama City Beach, right there. And Lynn Fazzoni is the city clerk. So the request, all you do is you just write an email to lfazzoni@pcbgov.com. And in the subject line, you just put public record request. And in the body, you just say, please send me the chain of title and the conveyance, the deed of conveyance for Popeye Park playground property. All you got to do, that's it. You don't have to cite any law. You don't have to do anything like that. That'll do it. And you'll get that. Now, who thinks that they actually have a deed of conveyance? Who thinks that the owners of that subdivision, every single one of them signed that deed off to the city? If they did not do that, that is a wild deed. They don't have a deed. They're lying. So number one, please, if you care, send a public record request. I know I will be. Here's the second place to send a public record request: to the property appraiser, Dan Sowell, who has injected himself into this by altering the public document. Here it is again. Look at this. This is absolutely mind-blowing. Last week, that was what, or a week and a half ago, that is what it said. It said it had no primary owner, and that the tax code, the property use code, said residential common, which, by the way, some people say, well, just find out who's paying taxes on the property and you find out who owns it, dummy. Not in this case, because it is a platted subdivision and the owners collectively own the parks and the lake. Okay. So if they were to be taxed collectively, they're essentially being double taxed. So they are tax exempt for owning those properties. That's what residential common indicates. Okay. But today, the property appraiser rather, he says the city of Panama City Beach owns it. Look at that. So he says the city owns it. Therefore, look at the property use code. It is now city vacant. So in both cases, there's nobody paying taxes. However, they are different codes. And that's what I want you to notice, because here's why that's important. Let's look again at the public record request to the property appraiser. Right there. So if you were to send a public record request to DSAL at propertyappraiser.net, baypa.net, and you just put public record request in the subject line, and you ask for the annual property use code since 1962, when this was created, until now, for the Popcorn Park playground property that appraiser Dan Sowell says the city owns. So every year since 1962, the property appraiser's office would have to list how it is taxed. Those records for each year will indicate who the property appraiser's office says owns that property up until the controversy kicked off a week and a half ago. See that? So that's one public record request. That's the other public record request. Panama City Beach says they own that property. Show us the deed of conveyance. Because if you don't have a deed of conveyance, guess what? You don't own it. You've slandered the title. This is huge. This will have implications and ramifications that are so big that I'll be sharing with you. God, they're so huge. And I'll be sharing them with you next week and beyond. But in the meantime, if you appreciate what I'm doing, I hope that you'll support my work. It's not easy, I promise you. And you can do that right here. You can become a patron. It is easy. It is anonymous, and you can quit at any time. And I survive on crowdfunding and sponsors. And it's not a business model I would recommend to any of you. Telling the truth is painful, but you've kept me afloat, and I sure hope that you'll support my efforts by becoming a patron. All right. This is so big today. Property appraiser alters the document. And here's why I claim he altered some people say, Bernie, he just changed the document. Okay. Here's my test. Did the city present to you, property appraiser Dan Sowell, did the city present to you a deed of conveyance? If they did not, and you're just operating on your new theory that you came up with, then you altered the document. If they presented you a deed of conveyance that every single owner of the subdivision signed over that deed to you, to the city, then he just changed it. He just updated it. What do you think? Was it an update, or what did he alter that document? Thanks for being with me, and I'll see you soon.